Just carved up this yellow birch. It's fresh, it's very wet, green wood. I cut it with a chainsaw and then I roughed it round with a bandsaw. But what I want to point out to you today, the technique I utilize to what they call balance the grain. Balancing the grain allows your finished piece to be more aesthetically pleasing. You can use features that are in the tree, emphasize them or de-emphasize them, or kind of influence the final project. So this video is about the pith of the tree and where that is in location to your project. So this raw material, when I figure out the center of where I want the center of rotation to go, or where I'm going to put my drive center, let me grab that. So this is the device I use to spin the material on the lathe. It's called the Big Bite by One Way. It's a great tool, love it. Been using it for quite some time. And what I do is I need to figure out here where I'm going to put this on the wood. Do I want it here? Do I want it here? 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 So what would be ideal is if from, let me point out first the grain orientation of the wood. Yeah, so as the tree grows, it was going in this orientation. Going across grain in the tree. The pith it would be ideal if the pith ran right down the middle. Be ideal. The grain pattern would be stunning. You'd get a perfect looking, perfect grain pattern on the inside of your project. However, very few trees grow perfectly straight. So what occurs when the trees bend or curve or arc, that will cause the pith to grow a little off center, or perhaps any other variations of reasons why the pith might be off center. So in this particular piece, I drew a line right here that identifies where the pith is. And then I put this little spot here where the center from left to right across the grain is. Now, if I was going for the really pretty pattern, the really balanced, perfect looking pattern, so to speak, I would put my drive center on the pith. However, in doing so with this particular piece, I would lose a lot of diameter, a couple inches, because my center of rotation being over here, this is my minimum width, so I'd be down maybe 4 or 5 inches of diameter. So by positioning my drive center on the literal center, cross axes from the wood, I will get a bigger diameter piece. So these are the dilemmas you got to consider. Not really dilemmas. I'm carving a tree after all. You know, it's a big darn deal. So these are things I think about. I go with the one in the middle. It produces a bigger bowl. This wood is pretty dynamite, if I do say so myself. And I did say that. It's a really nice tree, yellow birch. It's got a lot of red heartwood in there. So it should be a good one. So that's why I'm going to put my drive center here. And I hammer it in, pound it in good, and then I put it onto my chuck. I grip this in my chuck and mount this to it. Yeah. Now, when it comes to balancing the grain, first step is figure out where your pith is, and you make sure you align across grain with the Big Bite. Let me show you that here. So this gadget right here is set up across grain. You can see how there's 3 prongs. They're all pushing into the wood. Not really good with the camera. So they're pushing across the grain. The reason for that, I will show you is that I want to align, so this is the way the grain is in the tree. Cross grain is this way. So my 3 prongs are going across in this orientation. That's going to allow me to tilt the axis of this piece of wood this way or that way. And I can balance the grain. Ideally, I'd want the grain running vertical. Basically, if your horizontal axis is this way, you want your grain running perpendicular to that, as close as possible. And on the interior of your project, the bowl will display a more balanced look, something that's just a little more appealing. To achieve that, you take the upper part here and the lower part down below here. What I'm going to do is use my tool rest here as a guide. I'm going to get it really close on this side. I'm going to rotate to the other side and make sure I'm just as close, or that the distance is equal. If I have it on this side and I've got a 1/4 inch gap, and I flip it around to this side and I have a 2-inch gap, well, then I'm going to loosen the tailstock and I'm going to pivot this down so that it changes the rotation, so that then when I check this again, I will be closer or more equal to balance. During this demonstration, at the beginning of the demonstration I had it perfect, and then I just took it off center, so I got to put it back on center. Well, let me show you what it looks like over here. Up close. Alright, so if I come here, you see I'm touching right there. Let me loosen that. I'm touching, and there I've got about a finger distance gap. So I want to close that gap. So I need to adjust it about half that distance. So in doing so, I'm going to reach over here, loosen that. I need to go, this side needs to go that way. So I got to tilt it like this. Just a little bit. Right about there. Now I'm touching there, and I'm even further over there. So I clearly did it wrong. This side has to go that way. This side has to come this way. There, that's better. Touching there. And I'm a little gap there. So let's see if I can do it again. The more you do this, there we go, the worse you get at it. That's good. It's kind of hard to tell with the shaggy bark here, but I really like the shaggy bark. It wraps your fingers when you're turning. So that's how you kind of, the preliminary technique to balance the grain. That's what you do, or that's, I should say, what I do. Now after I carve it down a bit, I'm going to start carving this, make sure this is good and secure. And as I carve it, what's going to happen is I'm going to start to reveal, I'm going to carve through the bark and I'll start to reveal the grain. And once I get to a certain point, I will re-examine the material and find different ways to identify if I'm still balanced with the grain. And if I have the opportunity to do that, I will show you later. At this point, I got to get some work done. Alright, so here's a good way to visually see the balancing of the grain. You see this spot right here and down below. So a cross grain is this way, with the grain is up and down. This is showing good signs of being balanced. The inner bark here, this dark coloration, I want that spot to line up with this spot right there. And it does very well. If the bowl were tilted one way or the other, you know, vertical axis this way, if the bowl were tilted this way any amount, this would not align with this. and then you wouldn't have as you would be less balanced. It's not like the quality of the ball, like it's not going to hold